With us right now, Tyler Watson. Tyler, you're the president of the Freedom Catalyst, and you're found on the web at abundancemasters.com. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I'm excited to be here.
Well, what do you do?
Yeah, my main thing, it is a little bit different in the world of transformation and mindset. And traditionally, I was in more of as a coach and a mentor. I was teaching more on enrollment skills. So like how to find clients, how to enroll them, and mostly for speakers, coaches, and people who had a passion and wanted to go monetize it. But over the years, my background's actually in healthcare, in natural healthcare. My dad's what's called a clinical kinesiologist. Stepmom's called a naturopath. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to merge the two worlds together. So it's like sales and transformation with holistic modalities. And I did that. I created a technique 2 years ago called the abundance alignment technique. And it's a technique that goes beyond the mindset and beyond skill set and helps entrepreneurs take what they want and align their whole body, like on a cellular level, with the thing that they want, so that they get rid of the fight flight responses and they can attain it in literally days instead of years.
So well, what's going on here? And you can go ahead and get a little sciencey.
Yeah. So it actually started with food allergies. So my wife was allergic to gluten, and we did it on that. And all of a sudden she could eat gluten without reactions. And I thought, wow, like this is cool. And the whole philosophy is the only reason that someone is not attaining what they want, or they're taking too long, is due to an allergy or an addiction. And that's all we go into, is that it's beyond the mind. So a lot of mindset stuff goes into the mind, but what about your organs and your glands and how those are responding? So we developed a strategic way to pinpoint how your body responds, the fight flight responses to even goals. So if somebody's like wanting to go, for example, I had a client who was a chiropractor and he was stuck at a certain amount of money, and he'd been trying all the marketing, all the different things, and nothing was working. He's like, well, I just can't get past this threshold. It was like this ceiling. And he'd done mindset stuff. So I said, well, theoretically, if I'm on to something here, the only reason you're still stuck is because some part of you is literally allergic to that idea of the goal, or addicted to your current situation. And so he's like, okay, I'll drink the Kool-Aid and give it a shot. So he did. And within 30 days, he doubled his income after taking the goal as just the words of a goal and changing how his body responds to that goal. What it does, it gets rid of self-sabotage. It stops you going in circles. A lot of people procrastinate. We get distracted. And those are actually due to allergies and addictions. We just don't label them as that.
Yeah.
And so this is a really cool process. And we used it on foods first. And then we went to money goals, like helping people attain money goals, and then relationship goals. And then I thought, well, how extreme can we take this philosophy? So I had a guy named Craig, and he had a cardiac arrest about 5 years ago. And it was so severe, his symptoms, he could only function like 4 hours a day. And then his body would wear down. If he walked and he looked left or right, he'd fall over. And they tried everything. His wife was a master practitioner in different modalities, and they tried all the Western medicine and everything. And I thought, well, theoretically, if this is real, then the only reason your body has these symptoms with whatever disease, with whatever income bracket, is because some part of you has become addicted to what you don't want and allergic to what you do want. So we did an alignment, taught him how to align, and he aligned, and he called me back about a week later in tears, and he said, you're not going to believe this. Like, I'm functioning over 8 hours a day. I can walk, look left and right without falling over, and I got my life back. And that's when I knew I need to teach this. I need to get this out to more people, because so many people struggle and they don't know why, or they've hit a ceiling, or they settle. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we sacrifice things that are important to us, like our health, our family, for success. And so instead of doing that, we teach people how to balance your life through a process that is strategic and will get you to remove those fight flight responses so you can be in your full power and fully conscious when you go achieve your goals.
Yeah, so I interviewed Dr. Amy Novatsky. If you go back in the podcast, it's probably about a month back, I'm guessing. But for those who are listening right now, and so we kind of talked about this. She talked about it from a pain relief standpoint, so that when you and her big thing, of course, is lots of deep belly breathing, breathing and really relaxing that central nervous system. Well, when you relax your central nervous system, it allows your body to take care of things that it might normally not want to do because, you're standing up straight and you got your chest out and you're in that fight or flight mode. So your body's like, whoa, what's going on? Right. And so that impacts stress, that impacts so much of this. What you're saying, Tyler, is, kind of your thesis, as it were, and kind of your practice is, again, more of this work about training the nervous system to chill out, particularly maybe around the things that if I start thinking about like sales rejection or something like that, and I'm like, it's like, we start like, that pain of being, personally rejected. And it sounds like maybe a little bit of reframing, we associate, relax. Okay, now think of the activity. Am I heading in the right direction?
A little bit, to get a little, and do people just hear this or do they see it?
Oh, both.
Both.
And
okay,
so,
cool.
so to the person who just heard him Tyler ask that question, you're like, wait a minute, I can't see what? So if you go to our YouTube channel, just search Up My Influence, all one word, you'll find our repository of these great interviews, and you can see my goofy smiling face too.
Sweet. So
and trust me, it looks exactly like you imagine I look.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'll give you a little taste of it, so you can sense it. And yeah, it does deal with breathing. And some context to this. So, what the problem is I've probably invested almost $500,000 over the past 6-7 years in trying different methods and modalities to change myself. And I came from a background of struggle. I went through pornography addictions. I went through addictions of suicide, depression, like a lot of negative stuff. Watched my mom go through 4 divorces, dad through 2. And I knew that I didn't have to stay stuck, but it felt like my whole body, it was just like the natural state to go to was those addictive and struggling behaviors. And as I tried to do all these different techniques, a lot of them were just trying to reframe. A lot of them were getting to the root cause of stuff. A lot of them was cooling down the central nervous system. And they did work. But the problem is you had to do it a lot of times. It was like repetition was the key.
Sure.
And I thought, well, there's got to be a simpler way. Like, what is the fastest, most effective way to change human behavior? And that was my journey. And so that's what I'm still fascinated with. And I started to do some studies on transplants, like organ transplants. And I thought, well, if it's just the central nervous system, then why is it that if you go and do some research on people who've had organ transplants, that you can have a guy who has a liver transplant or a heart transplant, and all of a sudden he takes on some of the same attributes of his donor, where he's like, now he wants to paint. Now he's like, painting was not his thing, where all of a sudden these cravings, these ideas start to come from people who've had organ transplants. So what I found is that every organ and cell in your body has its own communication. It's not just in the central nervous system, but it goes both ways. So from the organ to the brain and the brain to the organs. And what we do, the difference here is you strategically find what part of your organ is allergic to the thing that you want. And then what you do, what's called aligning. And aligning is super simple. I teach it to my 5-year-old, and she does it. And she's gotten rid of her fear of the dark. She's gotten rid of fear of boys, like all sorts of cool stuff that was really terrifying for her. And here's how it works. This is the basic version. But let's say you think of something. So maybe it's sales. Maybe it's talking to your spouse. Maybe it's eating a certain food. And whatever it is that you're not doing or that you want to do, you could pick either one. you might feel something come up in your body. And at first you might not, because we don't really listen. Not many people listen to their body. But here's what you can do. You can state a goal. So let's say somebody wants to make like $10,000 in a week or $10,000 in a month. Maybe that's their goal and they've been focused on it. But their past perception of that means I got to struggle. It's hard. I got to sacrifice my family. I fail. That's their perceptions. And those are made from your body and how it interprets it. So what you can say that out loud, like you're like an affirmation or a goal. I make $10,000 in a month. And what you do is this. You tap on your forehead and you tap all the way down to the base of your neck, which is like a C7. And you tap breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And you do it 3 times in a row. So it's and you do this 3 times. And then you're going to pant like a dog 3 times while tapping. And then you smile. That's the essence of the alignment process. And what we're doing is, imagine when you set a goal, when you have those negative interpretations, it's like throwing a big rock in a pond, makes these huge ripples. And while you're tapping, you're causing little micro traumas around that ripple that stops those fight flight responses. The full technique, you actually go in and tap different parts of your body that are having those responses. So you might tap your heart, you might tap your liver, you might tap different glands while relating back to the thing you want. And you're turning off all of those, or reprogramming every single response to that thing that you want or don't want. And that's kind of how it works. And it might seem kind of weird and odd, but it is phenomenal. We've got hundreds of testimonials and things that we've worked on. So
no. So this very much like emotional freedom technique, EFT. So, and again, if you kind of look at the same, I get where you're coming from. So if you look at like, where does the science around acupuncture and dry needling, acupressure, where does that come from? This is helpful. So my wife is a licensed marriage and family therapist. In particularly, this is helpful for anxiety. And so now, does it work? Because again, I'm not the expert, you're the expert on this, but my understanding of this is, does it work because of the pressure points, or does it work because the brain says, hey, let's reprogram based on what it's relevant, right? Because if it works, it works. But certainly for like, I've seen this be helpful for PTSD clients, for again, folks that certainly feel anxiety around certain things. I remember way back when, Carol, I can't remember her name, long time ago. She's out in Utah, your neck of the woods. I want to say like in the 90s and early 2000s, she was remembering wholeness. That's all I can remember. She was gangsta on this stuff, back then. So that's cool. And then it's the exercise, regardless of, what's the science behind it that works, that, if you go through this practice and for whatever reason, your brain is able to, reassociate in a way that removes that fear or that anxiety. Hey, cool, do it. It works.
And this is the thing that I'm trying to portray, because I did almost 10,000 hours of EFT, and it is not EFT. And it is actually very different, because the whole focus on that is getting to the root cause. With what we do, you don't even need to know the root cause. It doesn't even matter. So for anxiety, if you wanted to work on anxiety, the crazy thing about this technique is it doesn't only help anxiety, it helps people attain goals. So and eat foods. And so and this is the difference, is that there's a fight and flight response to all things, like when our body, and it's beyond the mind. So part of our body is interpreting it. You might have your heart, let's say if it's around love, you maybe want to have a better relationship with a spouse or with your kids. And maybe this happened to me growing up, when my mom said that she loved me, part of me, not just my brain, but part of me, when I heard the word love, part of me felt like they didn't trust me enough to tell me the full truth. And so they would say things not while we were around to not hurt us, and they did it with good intention. But as a kid, I interpret it, my body and mind interpret it differently. So then when I married my wife and I was trying to communicate that I love her, the problem was is that some of me was still trying to communicate with my past perceptions. And I felt like this heaviness around love. It was hard for me to say the word love. And that was because of those negative connotations. And that is actually an addiction. So my body had become addicted to that negative cycle, that negative interpretation of love. This process, by just doing the breathing and the panting and the tapping, if you tap where it's interpreting, then it turns off that interpretation and allows you to change how it interprets it. So that's why you can take something, not just anxiety, because a lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm not anxious, but maybe they've just stopped achieving their goals. Maybe they've just become complacent and they don't see it as, oh, wow, I'm actually addicted to complacency, or I'm allergic to the next level of where I'm going. So I'm trying to show the difference, because I've taught a lot of practitioners who are EFT practitioners, body code practitioners, all sorts of practitioners. And the difference here, the big difference is everything comes down to allergies and addictions. And that the fastest way to shift those is to align every single part of your body to the thing that you want or don't want, so that now you don't have those responses regardless of where they came from. So you don't need to know sources, origins, interpretations. It's all just about pinpointing the response and aligning. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of a different way to look at it.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, again, it's, if this is, if you've seen this work, wonderful. Okay, so Tyler, for someone's been listening and they're like, okay, I want to check this out, want to dive more into this. What would be their next steps that they would, where would they go? What would they do?
Yeah, so one of the best places is actually my Facebook resource. I have a whole group there called Abundance Alignment Technique. You can go to it by just typing in tylerfb.com, tylerfb.com, and it'll take you right to my Facebook group. And in there, I have tons of free units and things that you can go through to like experience it yourself, hundreds of testimonials, people who have doubled their income, people who have gotten rid of severe allergies, traumas, to nailing their goals in 30 days when it was taking them years, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, Tyler FB for Facebook, tylerfb.com would be a great resource.
All right, Tyler, again, Tyler Watson, thank you so much. Your website, once again, what I had you at, it's abundancemasters.com. Is that the right?
Yeah, you can go there, abundancemasters.com. And Facebook though is the best resource. And then I have a YouTube that I share tons of videos because it's a very visual thing.
Yeah, right. I can tell. I can tell.
Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. Sounds great. Tyler Watson, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.